Good morning, people. I'm going to do the first video in a series about tuning and picking up chords in sessions, just the basics. We're going to be relating to guitar, fiddle and banjo. Some of the sessions that I go to are old-time American sessions, and they're the sessions where people often have a problem with tuning, partly because the banjo has to retune for different keys, and sometimes people retune their fiddles as well. Tuning is not so much of an issue if you go to an Irish session or maybe an English session, although increasingly people are worried about tuning in folk clubs because they've got to make sure that the instrument's in tune and they've got a short floor spot, and people go out the room to tune and that, and it's all become a little bit of a fear for musicians. I think musicians like myself that took up music at a young age, I played guitar since I was 8, I'm in my 40s now. Tuning's not so much of an issue. We all used to tune by ear, and then there were electronic tuners. Most people didn't use them because they weren't as good as they are now, and there's no reason why anyone really should need to use an electronic tuner for an acoustic instrument. They are very useful tools in a noisy setting, and they're pretty much essential if you're playing electric guitar or something, because you're on a stage and you want to tune, you're just not going to hear it, so you need an electronic tuner. And I'm not putting them down, a useful tool, but they're not really essential unless you're in a very noisy environment. We're going to do another video about tuning by ear, but in this one I would just like to give a few pointers about how to maximize your instrument so that you're not going to get too many problems tuning. We're going to look at how we put graphite in the nut, this bit. We're going to use a guitar, but we could do the same thing for the violin and the banjo, and some people put it as well on here. Now, the reason we're putting graphite on the nut is because when you tighten or loosen a string here, if there's not enough lubrication or if there's friction here, you're going to get tension building up there. And in extreme cases, the string can snap because there's loads of tension here, you keep turning. I mean, that's quite rare, but it can happen. The other thing is, when you turn it, if there's friction, the friction will build up. And after you think you've tuned it, say you're tuning it up, you tune it to the pitch required, and then it will gradually work its way through and go even tighter as it works through the friction. So we want to do all we can to avoid that scenario. Same with tuning down. One tip is putting graphite in here, and I'll show you how you do that. So first we'll just incidentally, the wound strings is particularly important for, because there's even more friction than there is on an unwound string. So we'll just loosen off this bottom E string. So we're going to loosen that right off, and we're going to lift that string out of its nut. And you can see I've put some out of its groove in the nut. We're just going to get some powdered graphite. Now, you can buy graphite paste from companies like the American company Stumac, but I've never needed to do that. I've just used any pencil will do. Maybe a softer pencil is better, but I've used an HB. I'm going to get a sharp knife, and I'm just going to scrape some graphite into that so it sits there, and that's going to act to help the string slip through the nut without too much tension building up. There goes the cat. I can't do a video without the cat. Right, so I'm going to lift that in, and I'm going to do it quite carefully, make sure it's loose enough. And I'm going to, as I tune the string back, I'm going to just hold it above the groove so it doesn't brush out all the graphite beforehand, so some of it stays in the groove. So when I can feel the tension, let go of the string. So there, we've got graphite in there, and that should help. But as I say, you can do exactly the same thing on the saddle. I tend not to as much because there's not as much movement from that part, but you can do if you like. So, and as I say, do the same with the banjo, the fiddle. So hopefully that will help someone.